Zimbabwe's beleaguered President Robert Mugabe resigns. Former Mexican President Vicente Fox fires a warning shot to Canada's president on Nafta, and cyber attacks are rife throughout Latin America. Hello and welcome to today's edition of Mexico News Network's Breaking News Business. I'm your host, Joseph Garza. Let's get to the information. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe resigned on Tuesday, facing almost certain extraction by impeachment. Lawmakers roared in jubilation and people began celebrating in the streets. Mr. Mugabe had previously refused to resign despite last week's military takeover and days of protests. He has been in power since independence in 1980. Over the past 15 years, the country's elections have been marred by violence against Mugabe's political opponents. He has presided over a deepening economic crisis in Zimbabwe, where people are on average 15% poorer now than they were in 1980. What triggered the moves to oust him was his dismissal of Emmerson Mnangagwa as vice president 2 weeks ago. That decision was seen by many as clearing the way for Mr. Mugabe's wife, Grace, to succeed her husband as leader. It riled the military leadership, who stepped in and put Mr. Mugabe under house arrest. A letter from Mr. Mugabe said that the decision was voluntary and that he had made it to allow a smooth transfer of power. The surprise announcement halted an impeachment hearing that had begun against him. The Speaker of Zimbabwe's Parliament, Jacob Mudenda, says a new leader will be announced by the end of Wednesday. In other news, former Mexican President Vicente Fox has warned Canada not to betray Mexico in trade talks with the U.S. Mr. Fox told CTV News he is concerned Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau seemed willing to protect Canada even by sacrificing Mexico. In October, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would consider a trade pact with Canada minus Mexico. Mr. Trudeau said in response to Mr. Trump that he still believes a renewed deal can be reached between the three partners. But he added that Canada has to be ready for anything. In a CTV News interview, Mr. Fox said that Mr. Trudeau might, like Judas, give us a strike and go with the United States and leave us aside. The talks to update the 1994 deal have become increasingly acrimonious. Trade ministers from the three partner nations are not at the table for this round of talks to provide negotiators time to analyze the proposals that have been tabled thus far. Mr. Fox, who served as Mexican president between 2000 and 2006, has been an outspoken critic of Mr. Trump, telling the BBC in February that the U.S. president could go to hell. Moving on, according to an alarming new study carried out by Sembra Media in collaboration with Omidyar Network, 6 out of 10 digital media in Mexico have suffered some type of cyber attack. According to the study, on average, half of the digital media analyzed suffered computer attacks, ranging from hacking and stealing information from email accounts and social networks, to denial of service attacks and defamation or discrediting campaigns through digital media. For journalism teacher and co-founder of Sembra Media, Michal Lastrubner, this degree of vulnerability with digital native media in Mexico is due to the fact that the level of institutional and physical insecurity against journalism in general is replicated in the digital field. Mexico, however, is not the country with the most cyber attacks among the nations included in the study. In Colombia, 80% of the digital native media has suffered some kind of cybernetic violation. The other two countries included in the research, Argentina and Brazil, suffered a relatively lower number of cyber attacks with only 24% and 32% respectively. Mexico is a special case for many reasons. Although there was a higher incidence of cyber attacks among Colombia's digital native media, it is also true that the country's self-censorship index was lower than that of Mexico. And finally, let's turn to the markets. The Mexican peso increased 0.25% to 18.8182 from 18.7710 in the previous trading session. On the other hand, the IPC Mexico increased 0.69% to 48,186 from 47,857 in the previous trading session. This was all for today. Thank you for staying with us. I'm your host, Joseph Garza. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Log on to MexicoNewsNetwork.com for more information on Mexico and the world. Until next time.